Hello everyone, it's time to do the recap of UFC Doha, UFC Qatar, UFC Qatar, however you want to say it. And, didn't do a prediction video for this one, but my picks were spot on, which figures. I would not do a prediction podcast and the picks would actually be great. I had Tsarukyan, I had Garry, I had Volkan Oezdemir, I had Waldo Cortez Acosta, I had Kyoji Horiguchi, I had Luke Riley, I had Nicholas Dalby, I had Asu Almabayev, I had Abdul Rahman Yakyayev. That's a mouthful. I had Alexander Topuria, I had Nurul Alaev, and I had no, I didn't have Denzel Freeman. So I lost picking Merrick Buljo. I've heard his name said so many different ways. I'm just like, even commentary was like giving up and just saying Merrick. I had Ryan Loder, who did not come through, and did not come through in violent fashion. And I had Jack Hermanson, but that was admittedly a bit of a coin flip fight, because it in a nutshell came down to how did I think Jack Hermanson was going to handle the weight cut, and I thought it would be bad, but like I hadn't seen it yet, hadn't seen it happen, and I'm like, okay, based on what I've seen, what is on paper, I'm going to pick Joker Jack over Miktabek Orabai. That being said, I suspect Hermanson's going to have a terrible weight cut, and I can't say that was the reason he lost. But looking at that knockout a couple of times over, yeah, part of the problem is Jack Hermanson, if you're listening to this, and you're not, 170 is too much to cut weight to. There you go. Anyways, let's talk about go in the usual order here, which is top to bottom. Arman, Tsarukyan, Dan Hooker, and this went pretty much exactly what I thought it was. The first round was competitive for a chunk, but then Tsarukyan gets him to the ground, starts brutalizing him, doing good work, and then in the second round, he gets him to the ground very, very early, and he absolutely brutalizes him into an arm triangle submission. And I said on Twitter that I did not like this booking, because there are just better things you can do with Dan Hooker, and there wasn't a lot of intrigue for me in this fight, because while a lot of people said things like, well, come on, Dan Hooker is a guy who has dealt with wrestle boxers before, and he's done well before and whatever, he has never done well against wrestle boxers who have impact damaging abilities and high-level athleticism. He had lost to Islam Makhachev, Michael Chandler, and his wins over wrestle boxers, a guy like Mateusz Gamrot, who has to chain wrestle, who has to wear you out, who has to win repetitive scrambles against you. Claudio Puelles, if you want to call him that, but Puelles has no takedown game. And then further back, you'd have to go to Ale like Quinta, who likes to box more than anything else. Gilbert Burns, who... people kind of forget that 2018 Gilbert Burns was really having a trouble with, number one, making lightweight, and number two, actually performing particularly well. You know, he had beaten Dan Moret and everything, but he'd lost to Michel Prazeres. He had lost to Rashid Makhmedov. He had some problems even in his wins over Alex Oliveira and Lucas Sayeski and so on. And it's like it was not the Gilbert Burns that we're thinking of. And yeah, this fight was pretty much the proof of that. You could have done something more action-packed with Hooker, and that would have been cool. And to be honest, I don't really think that this does anything for Tsarukyan. Because let's be honest, if this were a sport, if this were a mandatory competitive environment and not a promotional one and not a business one and not a Dana White picks who he wants to push one, he'd just be getting a title shot anyways. So the reason he's not getting a title shot, or the reason he hasn't gotten one, or he's been booked in this fight, is that they don't trust him. They don't trust him, rightfully so. His title shot against Makhachev was a gong show, and he's done nothing to change his ways. He was even hanging around with like Nina Drama before this one and like doing dumb stuff again, which, if you'll recall, was perhaps how he got injured the first time. And yeah, I totally understand that. But like, there's nothing in the ring, in the cage, that Tsarukyan can do to alleviate the concerns that the UFC probably has about him. So this fight did nothing for either party except for get a main event in Qatar and rob us of a 5-round fight between Belal Muhammad and Garry, which I think would have been more interesting given that Garry is probably going to be fighting for the title somewhere in the near future. Maybe not next, maybe not even 2 from now. But probably at some point, Ian Garry's going to be in a title shot. And having him fight Belal Muhammad over 3 rounds, I think would have been better for that. Now, that being said, over 5 rounds, I should say. Now, over 3 rounds, he did win this. There is some weird... So I want to address something. On betting Twitter and MMA Twitter, because they're the same thing, basically, there is a lot of people talking about how the second round of this fight was close. And I don't get it. It's not that any round was a blowout round for Ian Garry, to be clear. I scored all 3 rounds for him, but it's not that they were blowout rounds for him. My weird thing is that people are singling out round 2 as this like super close round, and I think it's the most concrete round for Garry. It's the round in which Garry outlanded him 35-28, so it was the lowest number of strikes landed by Belal, the highest number of strikes landed by Ian Garry. And in significant strikes, it was 20-11. And there was no wrestling success. It was 1 minute and 50 seconds of dry humping along the cage. I'm not even saying that you had to score this round for Ian Garry. But if you scored any rounds for Ian Garry, this is the one. And I didn't really get it. And I watched it a second time. I even did a rewatch of a fight I didn't particularly enjoy to be like, did I miss something? Was there some like great impact from Belal? And the answer I came up with was just no. Like, he starts the round reasonably well, landing some good shots, getting the front foot and doing some things. And he finishes the round reasonably well. But there's 4.5 minutes between there that he's losing. And that's all there is to say about it. So, yeah, I don't get that one. I don't have a lot to say about this fight. Belal's takedowns were shut down. Garry was able to outland him at range, where Belal has not really been competitive with anyone, and even was able to outwork him in the clinch at some point. So it's a good performance from Garry. I just don't think it's one that necessarily increases his stock. I think it just rams home the idea that at the top of this division, I don't think Belal is a threat the way that I think people think of him as an ex-champion being, because his run to the title was against a bunch of guys that his style was pretty well suited to. Curtis Millender, who doesn't wrestle well. Takeshi Sato, who's just not very good. Lyman Good, who is overly embracing of a wrestling game that he's not necessarily equipped to take on. Diego Lima, who's this really inactive guy who you could just out-volume. Debbie Amaya, who is very, very old. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who at the time was seemingly done, has had a second act since, so on. Vincente Luque, who has a number of flaws in his game that you can utilize. Sean Brady, who cannot strike, as we found out against Michael Morales. Gilbert Burns, who was very, very injured. And then Leon Edwards, who seems to be just kind of out of gas. And JDM and now Ian Garry have done the same thing to him, which is just neutralize his ability to get takedowns. And you win. So I don't know. I don't really think it really stands out in any way. But hey, it was definitely a matchup that had eyes to it. And then Volkan Oezdemir knocked out Alonzo Metafield and had a dominant display that I don't want to say I saw coming, because I didn't. I thought this would be like a relatively close fought fight, but one that Oezdemir was just a better striker and better suited to taking. But he went out there and he just terminated Metafield. So he's making somewhat of a statement here in the division. He had a close fight with Carlos Olberg as well. He knocked out Johnny Walker. He beat Bogdan Gushkov, which at the time we didn't really rate as much, but Gushkov's actually had a pretty good run since. So, he's on a bit of a hot streak, and I'm always here for the old guy to see the old guy doing this. We basically talked about Oralbai versus Hermansson before. Oralbai was able to just terminate him, and the way that it happened leads me to believe that Hermansson just should not be cutting to 170. Now, can he do a lot of great things at 185? Probably not, but I mean, he's not that far removed from beating Joe Pyfer and really befuddling him. So, and losing to get Gregory Rodriguez is just not a shame. As for Oralbai, what does this mean for his 170 run? I honestly don't know. He's a guy who benefits from having a size advantage that he's not going to have at 170 against people. But hey, he's still only lost one fight in the UFC, and that's to Matusz Rambeski, who is a unique little power ball of insanity. So yeah, he could be doing some things, and I'm interested to see what he does in the future. Speaking of interested in doing things in the future, Waldo Cortez Acosta is knocking people out. And he knocked out Shamil Gaziev without any real issue here. So he's now knocked out Gaziev, Ante Delaja, and Ryan Spawn in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Sergey Pavlich, and admittedly a crappy fight with Sergey Spivak. But hey, the big frustration with him for the longest time was that he was going to decision with guys like Jared Vanderraa and Chase Sherman and Andrei Arlovsky and Rebelis Despain. And, well, I kind of think this version of him probably would knock those guys out now. So it's improvement. It's good. It's great to see. The one thing I will say is people were trying to give him credit for cutting weight for the second time in like a short period of time. Dude, this is heavyweight. Come on. But yeah, no, Waldo's doing some things, and he's also marketing himself well. He did the eye patch bit with Michael Bisping, who of course famously lost an eye in fighting, and of course he got poked in the eye by Delaja last time out, and he's been more or less clowning on Tom Aspinall, and probably about the only person who is clowning on Tom Aspinall who has the right to do so, I suppose. And yeah, this is a good performance. Moving on. Not much to say about it because, I mean, hey, it was a fight where he went out there. He outlanded Gaziev 10-6, knocked him down twice, and finished his ass. Anyways, Tadger Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Did not like this booking. And I'm really, really happy that Horiguchi got the win, because if Ulanbekov won, it would have done absolutely nothing and it would just ruin Horiguchi. And that's why I didn't like it. The UFC is not interested in pushing Tadger Ulanbekov. They're not interested in promoting him. He's got the stoic Dagestani thing without the personality of Khabib or Khamzat. And of course, he doesn't have the overwhelmingness of Islam Makhachev. And he's not in a division like 205, which is the place where Magomed Ankalaev got a title shot. So they're not interested in pushing him, and I don't blame them. And that's why it was weird that they gave him this booking. And Horiguchi was able to pretty much embarrass him pretty effectively. He got taken down for like a minute and a half of the first round, and that was about it. Otherwise, he just pieced Ulanbekov up on the feet to the point where he outlanded him in the second round 47-5 and 120-10 overall. It was ridiculous. And then in the third round, he knocks him down twice and eventually puts him away with the rear naked choke and gets the job done. So fantastic work for Horiguchi. Called out Pantoja afterwards, and that's a place we're going to be heading to at some point. Luke Riley against Bogdan Grad. Riley had a rough first round, the way people do against Grad. Grad is a aggressive, pressure hungry, get in your face, not let you be comfortable kind of guy, and that's the only way he has to win fights. But it does mean that he is going to make things a little bit rough for you at some point, probably in every fight. And then in the second round, he nuked him in 30 seconds. So Luke Riley continues to show that he's got some nice pop in his hands. He's had a couple of knockouts now over the course of this. He's on a 3-fight knockout streak. He's got a lot of knockouts in general. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 knockouts in 12 wins. So, yeah, you know, he's an exciting prospect. He's got the Paddy Pimblett rub, and he's exciting, and I have concerns about him. There are some things he has to develop and get better, but he's 26 years old. He's got time to learn, and yeah, here's hoping that he's becomes a big part of the featherweight's future. Despite fighting relatively poorly, Nicholas Dalby was able to beat Saeed Isaac Gakmaev. I am never going to be comfortable saying that name, but yeah, it really is a bad sign for Isaac Gakmaev that Nicholas Dalby, while fighting his fight in Isaac's case, was able to beat him despite the fact that, like, that's not a fight you should lose. Like, I picked Dalby, but I figured Dalby would win because of pace and range striking, and no, he just went and clinched him repetitively and outworked him, I guess, and got the win. So, a deflating performance. Dalby gets a win in his 40s, and I don't really know what else to say. Honestly, that's kind of the end of what I've got to say about that fight, even though it was a long one. It went to decision, but yeah. Alex Perez came out and showed up well against Asu Almabayev. Almabayev's issue has always been, and I've for some reason closed UFC stats here, so just a sec. The question mark with Almabayev has always been that he doesn't have pace when it comes down to it, and this was no exception. He landed let's see here, 20 strikes in the first round, even though he had a takedown there. And it was more in the second round, but he was responding to Perez's pace at all times. And like, you have cardio, kid. You just got to like step it up and actually go and use it. And then he's down 2 rounds on my scorecard. And I think on 2 of the judges' scorecards, I could be wrong on that. I think someone had a 19-19. But in the third round, Perez, is doing his thing, pressuring. Goes for a takedown. Very, very earlier in the round. And gets a guillotine jumped on him and gets tapped out in 22 seconds. So it would be Perez's luck to lose in such a fashion. But hey, at least he got into the cage. For those who do not know, Alex Perez has an impressive list of non-fights. Fights that have been canceled and so on. And yeah. Almabayev is a really good fighter. It's just, I think that there's just a lot of the guys who came from the Central Asian scene, like Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, that kind of thing, and even like up into Russia, they've had this like weird tendency to like just be like really dominant in moments, but like not put together like 5 minutes of constant action. We see this with not just Almabayev. There's Azat Maxim. That's who I'm thinking of. And it's like at flyweight that you're not going to get away with that, but he has got wins. He's beaten Jose Ochoa. He's beaten Matheus Nicolau. But outside of Perez, I wouldn't really say that they're really good ones. Like I have a lot of faith in like Ochoa long term. Like I do really think Jose Ochoa is going to be something very, very fun long term in the division. He's got knockout power and like a reckless streak and a creative streak that like I think could be something. But he's very, very flawed right now. And very, very prone to getting out wrestled. So that was how Almabayev beat him. And that's kind of the question for me, is that like we saw this fight where Almabayev couldn't get easy takedowns and he was losing, and then he guillotined him. So does he have a submission to pull out against everybody in fights where he gets outpaced? I guess we'll find out in the long run, but I kind of doubt it. And then Abdul Rahman Yakyaev, he knocked down Rafael Sakura and Ringa choked him. People were like questioning Yakyaev as a big favorite on this card. I'm just like, Sakura is very, very bad. Also, shout out to Julius Walker, the only guy who has not finished Sakura, having a sense of humor about it on Twitter, where he was calling himself a bum, basically. I appreciate that, because everybody else is just like run through Sakura. It's including Ibo Aslan and Modestus Bukauskas. Like, this is not the top of the line people. So is Yakyaev a really good fighter? I don't know. Nothing about this fight proved it, but nothing about this fight was ever going to prove it. So he went out there and he dominated in 33 seconds. So I can't ask for more. I just kind of am stuck going, well, no. Alexander Topuria defeated Beksad Almakhan. It's a good fight. Alexander Topuria is not his brother. People are like really hyping him up off of this fight, and I just have to say, like, he doesn't have the apex level athleticism that Ilya has. He has the same game, or a largely very similar game. He has a surprisingly good defensive striking game for MMA. He has a good wrestling game. He has a good grappling game. He's a good athlete. He's just not a great athlete. And as fight went on, Almakhan had less and less and less for him. Now, it was a close fight throughout. We're talking like single-digit strike differences in every single round, but Topuria was starting to find like the ability to put combinations together and laying counters as well on Almakhan as the fight went on. And that's kind of the key difference here, is that despite the fact that the overall strike totals were 42 to 55, Almakhan threw 122 strikes and only landed 42 of them. That's the inefficiency beating him, and like Topuria being actually really a solid defensive fighter. So I really like Alexander Topuria. He's not his brother, and we need to, number one, we need to not expect him to be, but number two, people need to stop claiming that he is. Like, there were people like talking about like him being a champ with his brother, and it's like, that is not going to happen. I'm sorry. Not unless there's a massive change, a massive strike of improvement for him. It's just not there. Ishmael Nardiev, whichever it is, absolutely terminated Ryan Loder. Ryan Loder needs to not fight anymore. His knockout losses are like scary, and he's not young enough to really think that there's going to be things that change here, because he's in his 30s. He's already about as good as he's going to get. I understand that he's going places and trying to learn. He was training in Thailand for this fight and whatever, but there is a significant just lackingness to his game, where it's wrestling and that's it. Nothing else he does is comfortable. And I'm not saying he can't win fights. I'm just saying that he's going to get knocked out like this again, and that's not good for his long-term health, because Azamat Bakoyev did like the same thing to him. And you can't be getting knocked out by Naradiev and Bakoyev like this and be like, yeah, no, this is medically advisable for you to keep doing this. It's not really at all. Nurul Aliyev versus Shamrock. Aliyev, okay, Aliyev's striking looked better in this fight than it has looked in any other fight in the past. But I think that has to do with the fact that Shamrock on his back foot is like just bad. And we need to not get carried away. Don't get me wrong. Aliyev is a perfectly fine fighter and whatever, but like his path to victory is still going to be the wrestling. It's still going to be the pace. It's still going to be the aggression. It's not going to be as like any kind of quality boxer. Like, just that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's not what's going to happen. Shamrock is not a bad fighter, but Shamrock is a bad fighter on his back foot. He's very, very hittable. And I think that made Aliyev's striking look way better than it actually is. And hey, you got another win. He's still undefeated. Keep him rolling. Keep him rolling up the division. And then we had the opener between Denzel Freeman and Merrick Buyo. This is a weird fight to talk about because as a fight, it sucked. As a performance, it leads me to believe that there's a lot of passivity to Freeman's game that I don't really appreciate. But at the same time, I have to admit that there is some obvious like potential there. He can throw kicks, which at heavyweight is rare. He's patient. The technique looks pretty good. The power is, and the athleticism is like there. We knew that from his wrestling background. And he just has to get meaner in a nutshell. That's all. Like my mind was going throughout watching this fight. I watched it twice because I'm a masochist. Was me going like, okay, there's obvious potential. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, obvious potential here. But my God, could you pull the trigger? And like, the thing is that his corner was urging for like the same thing. So it's not like this was a considered slow pace fight. I think they wanted something impressive. They wanted something aggressive. They wanted something crushing, and they just didn't get it. So he does get a win in his debut. His next fight is going to be somewhat interesting, but he was out there against Buyo, who I don't want to say doesn't belong in the UFC, but I feel like he's going to be at best a Marcin Tybura type, because he's not super athletic. He's a big guy, but he's not super athletic. And he's got a good grappling background and pedigree, but his takedowns are not very good at all. And his striking, he was given like the front foot for most of this fight to do his thing, and it just there wasn't really anything to like. There wasn't anything to like hate. It wasn't comically bad or anything, but there wasn't anything to like. And that kind of leaves him, like I said, in that Tybura mold, where it's like, you're not especially athletic, you're in your 30s, and you don't have a game beyond a jiu-jitsu game. That's going to be a hard sell against anybody towards even like the mid-pack of the division. Then again, Walter Walker is heel hooking people right, left, and center in that very same division. So I guess who knows on that one. But yeah, Freeman's got to look out for in the future. But he's got to get that aggression. He's got to get that desire to just absolutely destroy his opponents. We got UFC 233 coming up from Las Vegas, Nevada. We got Merab Dvalishvili, Peter Yan. We've got Alexander Pantoja, Joshua Van. Excellent title fights. Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbot's an interesting fight. Jan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Gushkov. Don't love that one, if I'm being entirely honest. Brandon Moreno, Tetsuya Taira. 2 thumbs up. Macy Barber, Karine Silva, it's fine. Mansour Abdul Malik. Why is Antonio Tricoli still around? I know the answer. He's banging Mackenzie Dern, and that's basically it. But his 2 fights have been terrible. Grant Dawson versus Manuel Torres. Nazim Sadikov versus Faris Siam. Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan. Marvin Vittori versus Bruno Fajea in a battle of 2 absolute hulks. Jalen Turner is back and fighting against Barboza. I'm mixed on that. Obviously, like, Turner is an interesting fighter and all, but like, it's again that case of I'm retired, now I'm not retired. It's never a great feeling. And further down, Ibo Aslan versus Io Barniewski is how I'm going to go with the pronunciation for it. And then I'll dig in and probably find out I'm totally wrong. And Muhammad Naimov versus Myron Santos is on the card. So it's not a bad card. Is Santos coming back down to 145 now? Yeah. He did the lightweight fight with Siddiq Yusuf. Maybe he's back. I don't know. Myron Santos' interviews leads me to like believe there's a general lack of direction on that kid's resume right now. Anyways, down below you will find links to my video gaming stuff, my social medias, and all that jazz. Please check it out, especially the Discord server, because if you enjoy hearing me talk about MMA, you will probably enjoy the fight simulator that is there, as well as the Fight Masters Prediction League. So there you go. I will see you for next UFC pay-per-view, UFC 323. And until then, have a good day.